Hello students, welcome, and in here you will find a new video, and in this case we will be talking about metabolism. Let's remember that metabolism is defined as all the chemical reactions in the body in charge of using or producing energy. Remember that the main process in which the body is involved in producing or using energy are respiration and also digestion. The two main divisions of metabolism are called catabolism and anabolism. Let's talk about their differences. Catabolism is the process in which large molecules are broken down into small molecules, generally with the release of energy. The other process is called anabolism and generally is defined as the process in which small molecules are turned into large molecules. Some examples of these are, for example, in catabolism, respiration, in which large molecules of sugar are broken down into carbons used for producing ATP. On the other hand, we have photosynthesis as an example of anabolism, in which small molecules of carbons are joined or grouped together to form big molecules of sugar. Now let's talk about how metabolic processes do take place for creating or breaking down substances. The main tools for metabolic process are always enzymes. These enzymes are represented in this drawing, like this little green men, which are cutting molecules inside the large intestine, or the small intestine in this case. This represents the process of digestion. Now, if you remember, digestion is also an example of catabolic process, which is defined as breaking big molecules into smaller ones. But let's talk about the structure of an enzyme. Let's just remember that an enzyme is a proteic substance or a protein with a biological function. In this case, their function is to speed up reactions. That's why we call it a catalyst or a catalyzer protein. If you remember our first partial, let's talk about the structure of a protein. They're very complex molecules that are generally shaped like this diagram. This is a 3D image of our natural protein. So don't forget that they are very big and very complex molecules that have primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary structure. And we can see it in this 3D example. Well, returning to enzymes, let's review the process in which an enzyme acts. First, let's remember that they have an active site. This active site is going to be like the entrance for the substrate to take place. The substrate must get into the active site. This is a specific site, which means that we'll only work when a specific substrate. And then the enzyme, generally using water in a process of hydrolysis, is going to break that substrate into products, which in this case are glucose and fructose. This is a process of catabolism, or a catabolic breakdown of a substance. This image represents some organs in which the human body produces enzymes and how do they work breaking down substances. For example, in our mouth, we have a particular enzyme called amylase, which is in charge of breaking, for example, starch and bread into their sugar components. We have also in our stomach some particular enzymes which are in charge of breaking down the amino acids of the long protein chain that forms, for example, chicken leg into their amino acids, the ones that you already know. Then, for example, we have some enzymes that are in charge of breaking oils into their fatty acid subunits. You can find all over the internet charts like this to identify where our enzymes produce or which substrates they break down. Once you find these ending the word ase, for example, like in amylase or lipase or peptidase, it means it's an enzyme which is going to break something, or in other words, to make a catabolic process in breaking down substances. Now, let's talk about a real example in human body. Probably some of you are familiar with the concept lactose intolerance, which is related with metabolism and also related with catabolism, enzymes, and anabolism. A person that is lactose tolerant, or in other words, that can drink milk without having any gastric problems, it means that they produce easily an enzyme called lactase. If you remember what I just said in the previous slide, enzyme that ends with the word ase means an enzyme that breaks down things or substances. In this case, the lactase is going to be produced in our small intestines. The function of the lactase is to break down lactose. Lactose, remember, is a disaccharide, and in other words, it must be broken down into their subunits, glucose and galactose, in order to be assimilated by the intestinal walls. This is all occurring in the small intestine, right? So what will happen if a person is lactose intolerant? In other words, it means that this person does not produce lactase. So what will happen? The lactose, which is a disaccharide again, will pass from the small intestine, which must be absorbed, but because of the lack of lactase, it can't be absorbed. Okay, so it's going to stay in the small intestine and it's going to go all the way down to the large intestine. Now, when the lactose reaches the bacteria or the intestinal flora that we have in the large intestine, remember, a process is going to occur which is known as fermentation. The lactose is going to be the substrate for the bacteria to eat or to breathe, in this case, producing gas and some acids, which are the cause for these symptoms that probably some of you may know as the effects or the symptoms of being a lactose intolerant person. Well, now you know that all those symptoms of being lactose intolerant are produced by lacking or by the absence of an enzyme known as lactase. Remember, the function of enzymes is to break down substances or to make them bigger, but in the case of the lactose intolerance will be to break down lactose into their subunits. Well, now you have a little summary about metabolism and how enzymes work. I hope this video is useful for you, and we'll see ourselves in next time. See you.